Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
Let's welcome now Martina Espada, who has been here a number of times to read and will be back again, I'm sure. But he's published more than 20 books of poetry. He's an editor, essayist, and translator. His latest book of poems is called Floaters. It is really amazing. Winner of the 2021 National Book Award and the National Massachusetts Book Award, and a finalist for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize. Other books of poems include Visa to Those Who Have Failed, The Trellis Ball, The Republic of Poetry, Albanza, Imagine the Angels of Bread. He's the editor of What Saves Us, Poems of Empathy and Outrage in the Age of Trump. He has received the Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize, the Shelley Memorial Award, the Robert Creeley Award, and Academy of American Poets Fellowship, the Penn Refson Fellowship, a Letra Barak Fellowship, and a Guggenheim Fellowship. The Republic of Poetry was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. The top title poem of his collection, Albanza, about 9/11, has been widely anthologized and performed. His book of essays and poems, Zapata's Disciple, was banned in Tucson as part of the Mexican-American Studies program outlawed by the state of Arizona. A former tenant lawyer in Greater Boston, Espada is a professor of English at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and he's an amazing, amazing poet and activist. Let's welcome Martina Espada.
How thoughtful. Thought of everything.
Yeah.
Buenas tardes. Much better. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Well, I would like to begin by thanking Maria for bringing me here yet again. I have been coming here since 1991. By my math, that's 33 years. I would like to come here for another 33 years. It all began when they gave me the Paterson Poetry Prize. So many thanks to Maria, enormously generous human being. Thanks to Chen, my student. Very, very proud. Please give Chen another hand. And I want to thank my wife, Lauren, who is also here and hiding in the back. I'm going to read some poems. I'd like to dedicate this first poem to the 6 migrant construction workers who were killed in the collapse of the Key Bridge in Baltimore. June 2019, 2 Salvadoran migrants father and daughter, who came to be known as Oscar and Valeria, drowned crossing the Rio Grande. A photograph of their bodies went viral. You might remember it, sparking outrage, sparking grief, and also sparking skepticism. There was a post in the I'm 1015 Border Patrol Facebook group charging that this photograph was a fake. So, my poem speaks to this photograph and to these charges. Floaters, by the way, takes its title from a term used by many members of the Border Patrol to describe those who drown crossing over. So we'll begin here. Floaters. Epigraph. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask, have y'all ever seen floaters this clean? I'm not trying to be an ass, but I have never seen floaters like this. Could this be another edited photo? We've all seen the Dems and liberal parties do some pretty sick things. Anonymous post, I'm 1015 Border Patrol Facebook group. Like a beer bottle thrown into the river by a boy too drunk to cry. Like the shard of a styrofoam cup drained of coffee brown as the river. Like the plank of a fishing boat broken in half by the river, the dead float. And the dead have a name. Floaters, say the men of the Border Patrol, keeping watch all night by the river, hearts pumping coffee as they say the word floaters, soft as a bubble, hard as a shoe, as it nudges the body to see if it breathes, to see if it moans, to see if it sits up and speaks. And the dead have names. A feast day parade of names, names that dress all in red, names that twirl skirts, names that blow whistles, names that shake rattles, names that sing in praise of the saints. Say, Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez. Say, Angie Valeria Martinez Avalos. See how they rise off the tongue, the calling of birds somewhere in the trees above our heads, trilling in the dark heart of the leaves. Say what we know of them now they are dead. Oscar slapped dough for pizza with oven-blistered fingers. Daughter Valeria sang, banging a toy guitar. He slipped free of the apron he wore in the blast of the oven, sold the motorcycle he would kick till it sputtered to life, counted off pesos for the journey across the river, and the last of his 25 years, and the last of her 23 months. There is another name that beats its wings in the heart of the trees. Say, Tanya Vanessa Avalos, Oscar's wife and Valeria's mother, the witness stumbling along the river. Now their names rise off her tongue. Say, Oscar y Valeria. He swam from Matamoros across to Brownsville. The girl slung around his neck, stood her in the weeds on the Texas side of the river, swore to return with her mother in hand, turning his back as fathers do, who later say, I turned around and she was gone. In the time it takes for a bird to hop from branch to branch, Valeria jumped in the river after her father. Maybe he called out her name as he swept her up from the river. Maybe the river drowned out his voice as the water swept them away. Tanya called out the names of the saints, but the saints drowsed in the stupor of birds in the dark, their cages covered with blankets. The men on patrol would never hear their pleas for asylum, watching for floaters, hearts pumping coffee all night on the Texas side of the river. No one, they say, had ever seen floaters this clean. Oscar's black shirt yanked up to the armpits, Valeria's arms slung around her father's neck. Even after the light left her eyes, both face down in the weeds back on the Mexican side of the river. Another edited photo. See how her head disappears in his shirt, the waterlogged diaper bunched in her pants, the blue of the blue cans. The radio warned us about the crisis actors we see at one school shooting after another. The man called. Oscar will breathe, sit up, speak, tug the black shirt over his head, shower off the mud, and shake hands with the photographer. Yet, the floaters did not float down the Rio Grande like Olympians showing off the backstroke, nor did their souls float up to Dallas, land of rumored jobs and a president shot in the head as he waved from his motorcade. No bubbles rose from their breath in the mud, light as the iridescent circles of soap that would fascinate a 2-year-old. And the dead still have names. Names that sing in praise of the saints, names that flower in blossoms of white, a cortege of names dressed all in black, trailing the coffins to the cemetery. Carve their names in headlines and gravestones they would never know in the kitchens of this cacophonous world. Enter their names in the book of names. Say, Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez. Say, Angie Valeria Martinez Avalos. Bury them in a corner of the cemetery named for the sainted Archbishop of the Poor, shot in the heart saying Mass, bullets bought by the taxes I paid when I worked as a bouncer and fractured my hand 40 years ago, and bumper stickers read, El Salvador is Spanish for Vietnam. When the last bubble of breath escapes the body, may the men who speak of floaters, who have never seen floaters this clean, float through the clouds to the heavens, where they paddle the air as they wait for the saint who flips through the keys on his ring like a drowsy janitor till he fingers the key that turns the lock and shuts the gate on their babble-tongued faces, and they plunge back to earth, a shower of hailstones pelting the river, the Mexican side of the river. Not that long ago, a children's book about Roberto Clemente was banned and then unbanned in Florida. So here's a Clemente story. Puerto Rican Baseball Hall of Famer Roberto Clemente died on New Year's Eve 1972, delivering earthquake supplies to Nicaragua. I was 15 years old at the time, living in Valley Stream, Long Island. Of course, we were the only Puerto Rican family in town. Thus, this poem. Big Bird died for your sins. Barry was 6'6", 15, like me, floating layups and hook shots over our heads through the hoop in my driveway. We called him Big Bird for dwarfing us, for his slappy feet, for the mouth that hung in a grin at all our stories. We called him Big Bird because he would yell, "Foul!" every time anyone bumped him under the basket, as if we lived on Sesame Street. I liked Big Bird and his white boy afro. He never called me a greasy-haired spick under the hoop in my own driveway like Frankie, the clown on the block. On New Year's Eve, Roberto Clemente himself set foot on the prop plane at the airport of Puerto Rico, my father's island, boxes for Nicaragua stacked up after the earthquake, knowing the dictator's Guardia Nacional would crack open the crates, greedy as a pillaging army if he did not loom over them. The DC-7, engine like a smoker's heart, 4,000 pounds overweight, sputtered 100 feet above the trees, then spiraled into the sea on a night when the moon deserted the sky, the keeper of a lighthouse dreaming drunk. A crowd kept vigil on the beach. His compañero, the catcher, dove and dove again between the fins that sliced the waves, till the propeller's twisted hand rose from the sea, but never the body, never the ball player, never Clemente, never. My father told me, Roberto Clemente is dead. I could swear my father's eyes were red. I had never seen my father cry. This must be hay fever in winter. My mother saw him cry once, watching the funeral of JFK on television, the black riderless horse and the empty boots in the stirrups for the fallen. Later, the day after the baseball writers voted Clemente into the Hall of Fame, as the boys under the hoop toweled off and scooped up Cokes from a cooler, I said, when my father told me Clemente died, there were tears in his eyes. No one said anything, not even Frankie the Clown. Big Bird stopped grinning. Big Bird was thinking. The whine in his voice was gone when he finally said, they only did that because he was Puerto Rican. They only did that because he was black. There was once an episode on Sesame Street where Luisa Maria taught Big Bird about the meaning of death, how we all die one day, and his yellow head drooped heavy as a sunflower. I feel sad, he said. I could have rolled the numbers out like the dice in my Stratomatic baseball board game. 317. Lifetime average, 414 in the 1971 series, 3,000 hits, 12 gold gloves, the only walk-off inside the park grand slam in baseball history. I could have called on the spirit of a dead ball player to flood the screens in their heads with the leap and stab of the ball against the wall in right field that saved a no-hitter, the bark of the ball off his bat that fractured a pitcher's leg. I said nothing. I never said anything. Even when Frankie would croon his favorite song in my face, Spicka Spooka, the other boys would bathe in it. The next game began. I guarded Big Bird. I stomped on his slappy feet, spiked my elbows into his rib cage, rammed shoulder after shoulder into his back, blocked shots by jamming the ball into his chest. I knew nothing of karate, but kicked the air every time I yanked a rebound away. Foul! Yelled Big Bird, like a song on the jukebox nobody wanted to hear. Foul. This was my hoop, so I couldn't foul out. I wanted to see Big Bird cry, like I saw my father cry. Big Bird sniffed. No one saw him sneeze. He squinted hard, but we all knew. That day, Big Bird died for the sins of the fathers who cursed at the dark ball players on TV in the living room where their sons could hear it all. I had a vision of Big Bird rising above the palm trees, igniting in the air like a feathery piñata too close to the spark of a cigarette, crashing into the sea, the sharks feasting on yellow feathers, Luis and Maria on Sesame Street, explaining the meaning of a puppet's death as the nation mourned.
We can't reach it any better than you can. Sorry, honey, my shoulder doesn't move.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, therefore, lacking in the athletic ability whatsoever, I became a lawyer. I was a tenant lawyer with Su Clínica Legal, a legal services program for low-income Spanish-speaking tenants in Chelsea, Massachusetts, right across the Tobin Bridge from Boston. This poem is called The City Wears a Coat to Bed. The white army of winter spreads across the city. Boilers and radiators die in their sleep, their skin cold to the touch in the morning. The city wears a coat to bed. The city watches the wraith of breath rise in the kitchen. On Friday afternoons, the judges slip off their black robes and drive home. There is no light in the windows of the courthouse. There is no one to read the affidavit or sign the injunction to shove into the landlord's hand so that heat courses through the heart of the boiler and the looping hard veins of the radiator again. No one to hear the tenant's story translated, her sons and daughters shivering in their coats on the mattress, snot on their sleeves. The judges and the landlord home or stopping in a bar on the way home. She tells me instead, the lawyer who speaks Spanish and explains in Spanish why there will be no heat this weekend, why there is no one at the courthouse to listen, and still she pours her story into my ears till they swell to bursting. I walk her to the doorway of the office. The secretary is in the bathroom, the office space heater in the corner. Suddenly, I am steering the tenant out the door with the space heater in her arms as she says, gracias, over and over. And I say, okay, okay, knowing the secretary would yell my name louder than the time a drunk with a lightning scar on his belly charged through the door, naked, but for his socks and a Salvation Army blanket. The secretary would not miss the office space heater till Monday. I am the hero of this story, riding the bus home across the bridge, till I remember the words I should have said about the glowing coils too close to the mattress, how every week another fire rolls the smoldering wraith of winter through the bedroom as sons and daughters sleep, how every week EMTs tuck white sheets over bodies dead as a landlord's boiler. I will dream with eyes open of windows, the coils of space heaters and the coils of mattresses glowing in every window. My wife, Lauren, sitting in the back, is a writer and a teacher. In fact, she taught developmental English right here at PCCC. She also taught adult literacy at Ava's Village here in Paterson. She is the tutor in this home, which somehow snuck into the New Yorker. This poem is called Gonzo. Everybody knew Gonzo. His cigarettes and cologne, his gold crucifix, the white t-shirt he wore to every meeting. They leaned closer to listen whenever he spoke in the circle at the rehab center, some with eyes shut, seeing his confessions of addiction's demons and sobriety's angels at war. No one knew Gonzo signed his name with an X. The tutor at the rehab center held up flashcards and sounded out the letters A, B, C. There was no alphabet song in Gonzo's head, no teacher at the blackboard. He said the letters one by one. At the letter S, he stopped. The tutor studied Gonzo's nose, long but not as long as the nose of the Muppet with the same name. S, she said again. Gonzo had no front teeth, no place for his tongue to go. He puffed and sprayed, a man unable to navigate the river of his own name, Gonzales. He hid his face in his hands, unlettered cards in his head, as if the tutor could not see him now. A sob surged through him, a beast chained to the rock of his ribs for 50 years, since the days the roosters woke him up for school in Puerto Rico. He wiped his face clean. Gonzo was clean. Clean fingernails, clean shaven, clean white shirt. The tutor waited, thinking, he doesn't know his letters, but he knows every street in Paterson by name. She squeezed Gonzo's wrist once, then again, till his eyes met hers. She held up the next flashcard. She said, "Say T." Well, I have actually been writing a series of love poems to Lauren in the voices of strange creatures. This one was actually in PLR number 51, I believe it's the current issue. And here's the backstory. I lost a contact lens the day of a reading, and then together we saw a one-eyed fish in this sad little aquarium. So guess who I am in this poem? Love song of the one-eyed fish. I circle the tank in the aquarium, waiting for the school groups to tumble down the aisle like acrobats escaping the circus, clowns on their day off. They chatter about all the sharks they want to see, the dolphins to feed. They stop at my tank on tiptoe, fingers streaking the glass, and then they scream at the hole in my face. I am the one-eyed fish, my eyeball scooped out of the socket by another fish in a fight over who would hide in the rusty cylinder at the bottom of the tank, the authentic recreation of my environment in the bay. The teachers scream at the school groups to stop screaming and say to each other, "Is that all? Is this it?" We have no sharks or dolphins here. Nothing on the second floor, only a can for donations by the door and a one-eyed fish bumping off the glass. One morning, after I stare with my eye at the janitor mopping the floor, waiting for the 7th grade to yell in my half face, I see the flash of you, an angel fish in my tank. Proof that the gods of the aquarium are benevolent, that they checked the rusty cylinder at the bottom of the tank and figured out why the other fish was always sleeping. I am a fish in a tank doomed to swim in circles forever, and so I cannot hide the hole in my face. Yet you do not flit to the corner of the tank or dive into the rusty cylinder. You swim with me, and we circle the tank together. The school groups tumble down the aisle on cue, and the teacher says, "Look, an angel fish." If I could sing, that would be the name of my song. Look, an angel fish. I've actually never read this next poem in public. So here goes. This is indeed a new poem for my friend, teacher, and mentor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Professor Steve Stern. Steve and his wife Florencia Mayón are historians of Chile. Florencia is now in memory hospice. Some of you may know the song Gracias a la Vida, Thanks to Life by Violeta Parra. It features here. This poem is called Florencia Again and Again for Steve Stern. The singers sang to Florencia Mayón today. The threshold singers stood at the bedside in memory hospice and sang. As the pollsterer Frida Kahlo looked on, as Florencia looked on, the only word she spoke was no. The only word still left on her tongue, as she colored in her coloring book. The chorus sang as you walked into the room, and Florencia's eyes brimmed with the sight of you, husband, compañero. You slid behind her, arms looped around her neck, and she leaned back, lips sprouting for a kiss on the mouth once, then again. Let's sing to the singers, you said. You queued up the song on your cell. You sang, Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, thanks to life that has given me so much. Florencia sang in Spanish, was Florencia again, the song drifting from a window in the girlhood Santiago of her head. She became the writer of history she could no longer read, the teacher of students who would remember what she could not remember, Florencia again. When life in the song gave her the abecedario, she sang the word for alphabet from a spring so deep in the cavern of her brain, no neurologist could ever find it, Florencia again. When life in the song gave her La Marcha de mis pies cansados, she sang about the march of my tired feet, loud enough to startle the pack of nurses in the hallway, the march with you, her compañero, your tired feet trying to keep up with her, the march against the dictator in her Chile, all the songs a crowd would sing, Florencia again. How do you kill an idea? Florencia said to me when I asked why so many had to die in Chile, at an age when I still had to ask. 6 words I will carry like tiny shells from Chile as long as I remember what I remember, Florencia again. Gracias, you sang with Florencia at the bedside to the singers at Memory Hospice. You handed them the sheets with the printed lyrics of the song. Next time when you come, you can sing it to her, you said, Florencia again. My teacher, tomorrow you will turn the knob all hands dread, as if the steel would liquefy their fingers, walk through the door once more and sing. And so Florencia will become Florencia again and again. And I'll finish my reading with this poem. Last poem in the book, Floaters. My father, Francisco Luis Espada, Frank Espada, was born in the mountain town of Utuado, Puerto Rico in the year 1930 and died in Pacifica, California in the year 2014. When Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, I suddenly saw my father's hometown of Utuado everywhere, over and over on TV, on the internet, headlines. As John Lee Anderson put it in The New Yorker, Utuado had become, quote, a byword for the island's devastation. and 4,000 people died in Puerto Rico. So I started talking to my father, who had died 3 years before. Actually, I started talking to his ashes in a box, and that was the genesis of this last and final poem. Letter to my father, October 2017. You once said, "My reward for this life will be 1,000 pounds of dirt shoveled in my face." You were wrong. You are 7 pounds of ashes in a box, a Puerto Rican flag wrapped around you next to a red brick from the house in Utuado where you were born, all crammed together on my bookshelf. You taught me there is no God, no life after this life, so I know you're not watching me type this letter over my shoulder. When I was a boy, you were God. I watched from the 7th floor of the projects as you walked down into the street to stop a public execution. A big man caught a small man stealing his car, and everyone in Brooklyn heard the car alarm wail of the condemned, "He's killing me!" At a word from you, the executioner's hand slipped from the hair of the thief. "The kid was high," was all you said when you came back to us. When I was a boy and you were God, we flew to Puerto Rico. You said, "My grandfather was the mayor of Utuado. His name was Buenaventura." That means good fortune. I believed in your grandfather's name. I heard the tree frogs chanting to each other all night. I saw a banana leaf and elephant palm sprouting from the mountain's belly. I gnawed the mango's pit, and the sweet yellow hair stuck between my teeth. I said to you, "You came from another planet. How'd you do it?" You said, "Every morning, just before I woke up, I saw the mountains. Every morning, I see the mountains." In Utuado, 3 sisters, all in their 70s, all bedridden, all Pentecostales, who only left the house for church, lay sleeping on mattresses spread across the floor when the hurricane gutted the mountain the way a butcher slices open a dangled pig, and a rolling wall of mud buried them, leaving the 4th sister to stagger into the street, screaming like an unheeded prophet about the end of the world. And Utuado, a man who cultivated a garden of aguacate and carambola, feeding the avocado and star fruit to his nieces from New York, so the trees in his garden beheaded all at once like the soldiers of a beaten army, and so hanged himself. And Utuado, a welder and a handyman, rigged a pulley with a shopping cart to ferry rice and beans across the river where the bridge collapsed, witnessed the cart swaying above so many hands that raised a sign that told the helicopters, "Campamento los olvidados," Camp of the Forgotten. Los olvidados wait 7 hours in line for a government meal of Skittles and Vienna sausage, or a tarp to cover the bones of a house with no roof as the fungus grows on their skin from sleeping on mattresses drenched with the spit of the hurricane. They drink the brown water, waiting for microscopic monsters in their bellies to visit plagues upon them. A nurse says, "These people are going to have an epidemic. These people are going to die." The president flips rolls of paper towels to a crowd at a church in Guaynabo. Zeus lobbing thunderbolts on the locked ward of his delusions. Down the block, cousin Ricardo Bernice's boy says that somebody stole his can of diesel. I heard somebody ask you once if Puerto Rico needed to be free, and you said, "3 pulgadas de sangre en la calle." 3 inches of blood in the street. Now, 3 inches of mud flow through the streets of Utuado, and troops patrol the town, as if guarding the vein of copper in the ground, as if a shovel digging graves in the backyard might strike the ore below, as if La Brigada swinging machetes to clear the road might remember the last uprising. I know you are not God. I have the proof. 7 pounds of ashes in a box on my bookshelf. Gods do not die. And yet, I want you to be God again. Stride from the crowd to seize the president's arm before another roll of paper towels sails away. Thunder Spanish obscenities in his face. Banish him to a ruthless rainstorm in Utuado so he unravels one soaked sheet after another till there is nothing left but his cardboard heart. I promised myself I would stop talking to you, white box of gray grit. You were deaf even before you died. Hear my promise now. I will take you to the mountains where houses lost like ships at sea rise, blue and yellow from the mud. I will open my hands. I will scatter your ashes. En Utuado. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much.
Community is something I take seriously. I'm always looking for it myself, and I define it in many ways. And you're talking about the Puerto Rican community, for example, and I had the good fortune to be raised in an activist household by a Puerto Rican father who was deeply connected to the community. He even used to refer to Puerto Ricans as our people. And so I grew up with that, and I was really blessed to be part of that community in New York and beyond, and to inherit my father's relationships and I became, for example, good friends with one of his tightest compañeros, a writer named Jack Agüeros. In the present, I find community wherever I find it, among like-minded people, people who share the same passion, whether it's poetic or political or cultural or personal. And one of my communities is right here. There are many connections to Paterson, but there is no deeper or more important connection for me than the Poetry Center. And Maria Mazziari Gillen, you, people I always know I'll see here. And it's been a while because, COVID, and then I did a Zoom reading once for this community. But this always feels again so familiar that when I was sitting up there doing this reading, I was really energized. And most of what I read this afternoon was new work. I would never dare to do that unless I really, really trusted the community I was sharing the work with, in this case, the community here at the Poetry Center. I wouldn't go around doing that. Usually it's greatest hits, but in this case, I thought, I'm going to try reading this poem I've never read anywhere because I know who is hearing it. So I go from defining community very literally and very narrowly in terms of your own, what my father called our people, and to broadly, wherever you find it, wherever you go, wherever you travel or wander, and wherever you embrace others and are embraced yourself, that's community.